If you can get through the first 3 days, you've already won half the battle. You can write that phrase down, you can engrave it in the depths of your soul, because it's not motivational exaggeration, it's not a self-help cliché, it's not a catchy phrase to sound good. It's the brutal and statistical reality that every man who has really tried to quit pornography has already discovered firsthand, sometimes in the most painful way possible. The first 3 days are like crossing a minefield in enemy territory. Each step requires total attention. Each hour seems to drag on like an eternity. Each minute the mind tests you, provokes you, whispers to you, invents increasingly elaborate justifications. It is in this short period, just 72 hours, that most men give up, that millions of attempts fail, that dreams of change become just another broken promise. And here's what hurts the most. They give up believing that they don't have enough strength, that they are too weak, that they weren't born for this, when in reality they just didn't understand one fundamental thing. This suffering is not a sign of failure. It's a sign that the process is working. It's proof that you're breaking a real addiction, messing with neurological structures that have been built over years. If you've made it this far, if you're watching this on the 4th day, you need to understand the magnitude of what has just happened. You didn't just endure a few more days. You crossed the valley of death of recovery. You survived the period where the vast majority of men fall. You proved something that maybe even you didn't believe was possible, that real change is possible. What you need to know from the start is simple, but revolutionary. This brutal phase that you just went through was not a sign that you are weak. It was a sign that your brain was literally screaming in despair because it missed the digital drug it had been addicted to for years. It was real chemical withdrawal. It was documented neurological shock. It was the existential void that always appears when you cut off an artificial source of dopamine that the body had learned to consider essential for survival. And if you resisted this brutal beginning, these 3 days that separate the men who talk about change from the men who actually change, you are already astronomically ahead of the majority. Because while millions fall in this first stretch of the road, only those who cross this initial desert get to truly experience the promised land of freedom that is on the other side. But here's where most make the fatal mistake. They think that because they got through the first 3 days, now it's easy. They think the war is over, that they can relax their vigilance, that they have already proven what they needed to prove. And that's exactly when the addiction counterattacks with everything, because it knows they've lowered their guard. This video is not a premature celebration. It's a strategic map for you to understand exactly what happened in the last 3 days, why they were so critical, what was happening inside your body and mind while you were suffering, what specific traps appear in this period, and mainly, what weapons you can use not only to survive, but to transform this survival into lasting victory. It's not going to be motivational talk full of pretty phrases. It's not going to be an inspirational speech that makes you feel good for 5 minutes and then evaporates. It's going to be direct, scientific, down to earth, almost like a war manual written by someone who was on the battlefield and came back to tell the story. Because here's the truth that no one tells you. The first 3 days are just the beginning. They are like breaking the lock on the prison. Fundamental, necessary, but still not total freedom. Now you need to learn to live as a free man, to build an identity that doesn't depend on digital anesthesia, to develop natural sources of satisfaction that sustain a lifetime. And before we dive into this strategy, I need you to make a choice that will determine whether this initial victory turns into permanent transformation or just becomes another frustrated attempt. Subscribe to this channel right now and commit to following this series to the end. Because it's no use watching an isolated video when the urge hits and thinking that solves the problem. It's no use looking for punctual motivation when what you need is a robust system. This is a 90-day journey, a complete reconstruction of your relationship with pleasure, discipline, and identity. Each episode will bring a new weapon to your arsenal, a new tested strategy, a new reflection that strengthens your position. If you stay out, if you try to do this alone, if you think you already know everything you need to know, you'll end up going back to the same cycle as always. 3 days of resistance followed by a relapse that erases all progress. But if you stay together, if you commit to the complete process, you'll have constant company in this fight, you'll have guidance for each new phase, You'll have a community of men who understand exactly what you're going through. So decide now, at this moment. Subscribe as if your freedom depended on it, because it does. Comment below on what day you are on, because publicly declaring your progress is not vanity. It's a psychological strategy that multiplies your chance of success. And get ready to discover that getting through the first 3 days was not the end of the journey. It was just proof that you have within you everything you need to go much, much further. Because if you cross this initial minefield, if you survive the valley of death of the first days, you have already proven to yourself something that changes everything. You can win this war. Now let's learn how to turn this possibility into permanent reality. Why the first 3 days are the hardest? Maybe you're wondering, why is it so difficult right at the beginning? Why doesn't it get heavier only after weeks? The answer lies in how your brain has been conditioned. For months, maybe years, it got used to receiving high and artificial doses of dopamine every time you opened a porn site. It was fast, easy, immediate. Each click reinforced the mental trail that said, pleasure is here, just a second away. When you cut off this access suddenly, the brain panics. It's like a nicotine addict throwing away the cigarette, or someone who has always drunk strong coffee suddenly trying to get through the day without anything. The whole body feels the lack, but in the case of pornography, the process is even more treacherous because it leaves no visible marks. There is no smell, no trembling in the body, as happens with heavier drugs. What appears is something more subtle but equally brutal: anxiety, restlessness, irritation, emptiness. These first 3 days are the period when withdrawal screams the loudest. The brain hasn't understood that the pattern has changed yet. It sends out alarm signals, begs for the usual shortcut, invents convincing excuses for you to relapse. And since memory associates immediate pleasure with pornography, the urge seems unbearable. That's exactly why so many people fall right at the beginning. But here's the detail that changes everything. If you understand that these 3 days are just a withdrawal phase, you stop believing that you are getting worse, or that there's no way out. You start to see it as the body saying, I want the old drug, and you respond, no, now it's different. This chemical shock is proof that you are in the process of healing, and like all healing, it starts by hurting. Therefore, remember well, these 3 days are not the end of the line. They are the gateway to a different life. Enduring this stretch is like crossing the initial storm of a journey. If you endure, the path begins to open up. The invisible enemy, triggers. Now comes the point that knocks down many people in the first days. Triggers. They are like invisible enemies ambushed in every corner waiting for you to lower your guard. Sometimes it's not even the pornography itself, but something small, almost innocent. Scrolling through a social media feed, seeing a suggestive scene in a movie, being alone with your cell phone in your hand, letting boredom grow without realizing it. Each of these situations ignites the spark that can turn into a fire. The danger of triggers is precisely this. They seem harmless. You think, I'll just take a quick look. It's just a photo. There's nothing wrong with it. But this is the first domino. A poorly managed trigger opens the door to complete relapse. How many times have you fallen without even realizing you were being provoked? How many times did you think you were in control, and minutes later, you were already trapped in the cycle again? Triggers are the secret weapon of addiction, because while you think the problem is just willpower, they will slowly undermine your defenses. The cell phone next to the bed, the computer on until late, the idle time when the mind starts to wander. All this seems like detail, but in the background it is the terrain where the enemy plants the traps. The only way to win is to start identifying these triggers, give them names, recognize that they are not neutral, that they carry weight, and from there create barriers. It's not about being paranoid, but about being strategic. Because if temptation is just a click away, you've already entered the battle at a disadvantage. So stop for a moment and take an inventory. What are your triggers? Is it the cell phone in the dark room? Is it spending too much time alone at home? Is it aimlessly browsing social media? Is it the boredom of the weekend? Be honest with yourself, because only those who recognize the enemy can truly prepare to face it. And remember, triggers are not just digital, they can be emotions too. Stress, loneliness, anxiety, they all push you towards the old habit. When you learn to identify these states, you will realize that the impulse does not arise from nowhere. It has a root, and you can cut that root before it grows. The mind at war. The first 3 days are marked by a silent war inside your own head. It's as if there were two armies occupying the same territory. On one side, the immediate impulse screaming for you to give in. On the other, the greater purpose that brought you here. And you are in the middle, hearing both voices at the same time. One saying, "Just today, it's okay." Another reminding, "If you fall now, you reinforce the chain you are trying to break." This conflict is brutal because it doesn't happen in an open field, but inside your mind. There is no rest, no truce. Every minute you feel the pull of the old mental trails, as if you were being dragged back to the old pattern. Addiction is smart. It knows your loopholes, your schedules, your habits. It knows how to disguise itself as innocent relief, when in reality it's just another trap. Imagine a chessboard. The side of the impulse plays fast, always trying to corner you in hasty moves. The side of the purpose needs to play slowly, calculate, think before moving. The difference between winning and losing is not in the strength of the pieces, but in who can keep calm in the middle of the pressure. In the first days, the addicted mind is noisy. It creates images, memories, fantasies. It seems that your own imagination is against you, and in a way it is, because for years you fed these paths. Now they are so strengthened that they seem independent. But don't be fooled, you still have the power to decide. This mental war is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign that the addiction has lost its comfort. If everything were the same, you wouldn't even feel conflict. Silence would be defeat. The noise you feel is proof that you are messing with the structures. The secret to getting through this battle is to remember that will is not order. The impulse can scream, but you are not obliged to obey. It's just a noisy visitor knocking on the door. You decide whether to open it or not, and the more times you decide not to open it, the weaker this visitor becomes. In the first 3 days, the mind at war seems like an invincible enemy, but every minute of resistance is a small victory. And the sum of these small victories is what transforms a battlefield into conquered territory. What you will feel in these days. Let's talk about symptoms, because there's no use sugarcoating it. You're going to feel strange things in these first 3 days, and if you don't know what it is, you might confuse it with failure. So get ready. The first symptom is anxiety, a constant discomfort, as if there were an engine running inside you. It's the mind asking for the old dopamine rush and not finding it. This anxiety can come in the form of restlessness, difficulty staying still, a feeling that you need to do something urgent without even knowing what. The second is irritation. Everything seems to bother you. Small noises, people talking, simple tasks. It's as if the fuse is short. This happens because the brain has lost the anesthesia that pornography provided. Now, the common stimuli of life seem too heavy. The third is the intense, almost physical urge. You may feel heat in your body, accumulated tension as if it were impossible to ignore. It is at this point that many give up, believing that there is no choice. But understand, will is not order. It's just a chemical impulse, not a decree. Another common symptom is apathy. The world seems dull, the things you liked lose their shine. This is scary because it seems that life will never be good again. But it's temporary. It's just the brain recalibrating. Difficulty sleeping may also appear. The mind races, the thoughts don't stop. This is the body trying to adjust without the exaggerated dopamine as usual. These symptoms do not mean that you are getting worse. On the contrary, they are signs of healing. It's like a fever when you're sick. It's uncomfortable, but it shows that the body is reacting. So don't despair when you feel this. Recognize each symptom as part of the process. Anxiety. It's the brain asking for the old shortcut. Irritation. It's the mind without anesthesia. Intense urge. It's proof that the habit is losing ground. Apathy. It's the system reorganizing itself. Remember this. Feeling discomfort in these days is not defeat. It's progress. The danger of quick relapses. Now we need to talk about one of the biggest enemies of these first days, the quick relapse. It's when you start with all the energy, full of disposition, but fall right at the beginning, sometimes on the second day. sometimes in the first early morning. And this happens to more men than you imagine. Why do so many people fall so early? Because they underestimate the power of the first click. They think, I'll just take a quick look. I'll just watch a few minutes, then close. But the truth is that there is no just a look. Addiction doesn't want 5 minutes. It wants to open the door. And when the door is open, it's very difficult to close it again. Each quick relapse reinforces the cycle. The brain registers. He still obeys. He is still available. And this weakens your confidence. You look back and think, I couldn't even last 2 days. This feeling of incapacity is devastating because it undermines faith in oneself. That's exactly why so many people spend years trapped in the same pattern, trying, failing early, giving up. And each early failure increases the weight of shame. But here's the truth that needs to be clear. Falling early doesn't mean you're too weak. It means that addiction is cunning and attacks with everything at the beginning. If you resist the first click, the pressure decreases. But if you give in, you reinforce the chain. Therefore, face the beginning as sacred territory. In the first days, you can't play with fire. You can't test your limits. You need to be radical. Cell phone out of the room, blockers installed, planned routine. Because any carelessness here is costly. It's like building a castle. In the beginning, the walls are still low and fragile. If the enemy attacks at this stage, you need to defend with everything. Because if you resist, soon the walls will get higher and stronger. So don't be fooled by the idea that one click doesn't hurt. It's exactly this click that opens the way for everything else. The first relapse is always the most dangerous. Protect yourself from it, as if your life depended on it, because it does. Strategy 1. Cold showers. When the urge seems unbearable, there is a simple and immediate weapon: the cold shower. It sounds like nonsense, but it's not. The shock of cold water on the body interrupts mental patterns, changes the physiological state, and cuts off the spiral of thoughts that could lead to relapse. Addiction works like a cycle: stimulus, fantasy, action. Often you don't fall because you want it so badly, but because you let your mind run wild in this cycle for too long. The cold shower comes in right there, breaking the sequence. It's an instant reset that takes you out of your head and puts you in your body. Science explains, when you come into contact with cold water, your body activates the sympathetic nervous system. This releases norepinephrine, which increases focus, energy, and creates a sense of alertness. At the same time, the low temperature causes blood vessels to constrict and then dilate, which brings a feeling of vitality. The result? The urge loses strength because the brain changes its priority. Instead of thinking about pleasure, it thinks about survival. And it doesn't have to be anything heroic. It's not about spending 5 minutes freezing and coming out almost purple. Just 60 to 90 seconds of cold water on your shoulders, chest, and neck. Take a deep breath, accept the discomfort, and notice how when you get out, your mind is no longer dominated by the same desire. In addition, the cold shower creates a symbol. It shows yourself that you are capable of saying no to comfort. And this small training reinforces discipline in other areas. If you can handle the cold water, you can also handle the urge. It's a physical reminder that discomfort doesn't kill. In fact, it strengthens. In the first 3 days, whenever you feel the desire rising, remember, you have this weapon. You don't need to argue with the urge. You don't need to negotiate. Get up, go to the shower, turn to cold and face it. When you get out, you will feel different. Not perfect, not cured, but strong enough to get through the next few hours. Strategy 2. Physical movement. Another powerful weapon in these early days is physical movement. Because a desire at rest becomes a multiplied desire. If you lie down, sit, scroll through the screen, your mind starts to invent excuses and images. But when you move, when you put your body into action, this energy changes shape. It doesn't have to be a 2-hour gym session or a heavy workout. What matters is breaking the stagnation. A quick walk, some stretching, push-ups, light jogging, even dancing alone, listening to music. The body in motion takes the mind out of the state of passivity in which addiction thrives. Biology explains. By moving, you release endorphins, serotonin, and regulate dopamine naturally. It's like giving the brain the reward it craves so much, but in a healthy way. The urge, which seemed gigantic, shrinks when the body is active. And there's more. Physical movement also creates a living metaphor for your struggle. Every time you get off the couch to exercise, you are proving to yourself that you can go from a state of slave to a state of warrior. The body is not an enemy of the process, it is an ally. When you use your body, you transform the energy of desire into the energy of action. In the first 3 days, this practice can be the difference between falling or not, because the will comes strong, and if you stand still, it grows. But if you get up, change your environment, speed up your heart, breathe deeply, the will decreases. Here's a secret. The urge doesn't last forever. It has peaks of a few minutes. If you can get through that time in motion, the wave passes. So create small rituals, 20 squats when the will comes, a 15-minute walk, a sequence of stretches. It doesn't have to be perfect, it has to be immediate. Think of it this way. Every drop of sweat that falls is a temptation that has lost strength. Every step taken is a click you avoided. The body doesn't lie. It shows you that you still have the energy to win. Strategy 3. Busy routine. If there is a terrain where addiction flourishes, that terrain is called boredom, loneliness, lack of occupation, empty time. It is in this space that the mind begins to fantasize, create excuses, and seek the easy shortcut. Therefore, one of the most effective strategies to get through the first 3 days is to occupy your time. Busy routine doesn't mean filling your schedule with impossible commitments. It means giving direction to your energy. Because if you don't decide what you're going to do, addiction decides for you. In the first few days, plan the next day before going to sleep. Write down simple tasks. Study for an hour. Organize the room. Cook. Go for a walk. Call someone. Small actions that create movement and take you out of inertia. A busy mind has less room for fantasies. When you are immersed in an activity, the urge appears but does not find fertile ground. And when it appears, you are too busy to pay attention. Remember, pornography thrives in secrecy, silence, and idleness. The more free time you have without direction, the stronger it becomes. Also, create productive refuges. Instead of opening your cell phone in boredom, have a book already marked, a list of things to learn, a notebook to write. Replace the habit of scrolling the screen with something that really builds. And above all, understand that routine is not prison. It is a shield. Many think that planning the day takes away freedom, but the truth is the opposite. Routine protects you from invisible temptations. It's like a map in the middle of a minefield. Whoever walks without a map steps anywhere and explodes. Whoever has a map knows where to put their foot. In the first 3 days, every hour without relapse is already a victory. And the busier you are, the more hours pass without you noticing. When you look back, you will see that it was not just discipline, it was strategy. Strategy 4. Digital control. The truth is simple. If temptation is just a click away, you've already lost half the battle. Addiction doesn't need to be strong when access is easy. Therefore, one of the most powerful weapons in the first 3 days is digital control. Stop and think. How many times have you relapsed not because you were planning, but because your cell phone was there, unlocked, full of shortcuts? The tired mind cannot resist the easy path. It's like an ex-smoker keeping packs on the table. Temptation is always within reach. So the first rule is to create friction. Site and app blockers are not ornaments, they are shields. Install programs like Cold Turkey, Leech Block, OneFocus, or any equivalent in your browser. Put in keywords and addresses that you know are dangerous. Thus, in the moment of impulse, the click finds a wall. This barrier can be the difference between 30 seconds of desire and 30 minutes of relapse. But don't stop there. Reorganize your home screen, remove flashy icons, change wallpapers to something neutral without stimuli. Leave your cell phone out of the room at night. Sounds radical? Maybe, but it's no more radical than losing days, weeks, and years in relapses. Another strategy is to set screen-free times. In the first 3 days, establish a digital curfew. No cell phone or computer after a certain time. Put the device to charge in another room. Night is fertile ground for relapses because you are tired, alone, and vulnerable. A click in silence can throw away all the effort. And remember, Digital control is not a sign of weakness, it's intelligence. No warrior goes into battle bare-chested without armor. You don't need to prove that you have unlimited willpower. You need to prove that you know how to set up the battlefield in your favor. In the first 3 days, digital can be your biggest enemy. But if you change the board, you can turn it into an ally. Use technology to protect, not to destroy. Whoever controls the digital environment already starts the war with an advantage. Strategy 5. Support and community. One of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to overcome addiction is fighting alone. Isolation is the oxygen of pornography. The more you keep a secret, the stronger it becomes. Therefore, in these first 3 days, support and community are not optional, they are essential. Think of any army. No soldier goes to war alone. They form ranks, protect each other, raise shields side by side. Alone, you can even resist for a few hours, but the mind will find loopholes. In community, you multiply your strength. And here I'm not just talking about face-to-face groups, but also online spaces, forums, channels like this one. Even the comments below this video can be trenches. When you write day 1, day 2, or I'm starting over, you're not just typing words. You are making a public commitment. You are saying to addiction, I am no longer hidden. The simple act of declaring yourself takes power away from the secret. Shame, which is one of the greatest weapons of addiction, loses strength when you speak out loud, because suddenly it's no longer a dirty secret hidden within 4 walls. It's an open fight, and addiction hates witnesses. In addition, supporting others also strengthens you. When you encourage someone who is on the same battlefield, you are repeating to yourself the reasons why you should not give up. It's a two-way street. The more you help, the firmer you become. In the first 3 days, seek interaction. If you don't have a group, use the comments. If you don't have a close friend, write in a notebook as if you were talking to someone. The important thing is not to be silent, because silence is fertile ground for relapse. Repeat to yourself, I am not alone. It may seem like a small sentence, but it changes the way you face pain. Instead of feeling like you're carrying an unbearable weight, you realize you're part of a legion. And that perception in itself is courage. Reframe discomfort. Now comes one of the most important keys to surviving the first 3 days. Changing the way you see discomfort. Because most fall not because of the intensity of the pain, but because of the interpretation they give it. When anxiety tightens, when insomnia hits, when the body asks for relief, the automatic thought is, this means I'm getting worse, that it's not worth it. But the reality is the opposite. Each symptom is a sign of healing. Think of it like a fever. When the body faces an infection, the temperature rises. It's uncomfortable, but it's proof that the immune system is fighting. The same happens here. Irritation, tiredness, lack of focus are not failures. They are the brain adjusting after years of artificial dopamine. The secret is to reframe. Instead of thinking, I'm suffering because I don't watch pornography, think, I'm healing because I don't watch pornography. The symptom ceases to be punishment and becomes a sign of progress, and this change of perspective is what separates those who give up from those who resist. Those who see pain as punishment run back to addiction. Those who see pain as training remain firm until the body adjusts. The Stoics were already talking about this 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius said that the obstacle is the way. Epictetus reminded us that no one is free as long as they are a slave to desires. Discomfort is not an enemy, it is part of the liberation process. So, in the first 3 days, repeat to yourself, this emptiness is the space where my freedom is being born. Record this phrase, because every time the will comes, you will need it as an anchor. It's not about denying the discomfort, but about accepting it with another look. Each anxiety, each squeeze, each insomnia is proof that you are alive and in transformation. It is the price of freedom, and freedom is worth the price. Visualizing post-day 3. If the first 3 days seem like hell, it's because in a way they are. But here's the truth that few tell. Surviving this beginning is going through the darkest part of the tunnel. It doesn't mean the war is over, but it means the fog is starting to dissipate. Imagine it like a climb. The first meters are always the steepest. The body trembles, the breath is lacking, and the mind screams to give up. But when you pass this initial stretch, the muscles get used to it, the rhythm is established, and suddenly the path becomes more bearable. That's what happens after the third day. You start to feel flashes of clarity, small moments when thought is no longer completely dominated by will. Maybe it only lasts a few minutes, but those minutes are already a preview of what's to come. You realize that you can concentrate on a task, that you can talk without your mind wandering to desire, that you can even laugh at something simple without that heavy shadow in the background. Energy also shows signs of returning. It's not an explosion, it's not magic, but it's noticeable. The body, which seemed drained, begins to give answers. You wake up less heavy, feel like moving, doing something productive. This initial vitality is the body saying, I can do it without cheap dopamine. The most powerful, however, is the change in self-esteem. Each day resisted is a brick in the construction of a new identity. You look back and see, before I didn't even spend 24 hours. Now I've already won 3 days. This realization generates pride, and pride generates strength. You realize that you are no longer completely at the mercy of addiction. You have proven to yourself that you can. And from here, a new hope arises. If I endured 3 days, why not 10? If I managed to get through an entire weekend, why not an entire week? The mind begins to open up to possibilities that previously seemed impossible. It is important to understand that triggers will still be present. The 4th day, the 5th, the 6th will still bring temptations, but the intensity is no longer the same. You are no longer the same. The battlefield changes because now you have scars of victory, and each scar is a reminder. I have resisted before. I can resist again. Visualizing post-day 3 is planting hope in the midst of pain. It is looking ahead and seeing not only the effort, but also the rewards. Imagine yourself waking up with energy, feeling pleasure in simple things, looking in the mirror without shame. Imagine yourself counting the days with pride, not with weight. Imagine yourself walking towards 30, 60, 90 days, each time more free. These images are not illusions, they are maps, and maps are fundamental in long battles. Without a horizon, the pain seems eternal. With a horizon, the pain becomes a bridge. Post-day 3 is the first glimpse of that horizon. So record, if you've made it this far, you've already won the hardest part. What comes next is still a fight, but it's a fight that you've already proven you can face. And now we come to the end of this chapter, but definitely not to the end of the war. The 4th day is a historic milestone in your personal journey because it means that you have crossed the darkest valley that separates the men who only talk about change from the men who really change their lives. It means that you resisted the most concentrated poison that addiction can inject, that you did not surrender your will to the first seductive click, that you endured a psychological pressure that would make most men completely collapse. This is not just a few more days. This is already real, measurable, statistically significant victory. You are officially among the minority that manages to go from discourse to action, from intention to transformation. But I need to be brutally honest with you. Don't be fooled into thinking that everything is resolved now, that the war is over, that you can lower your guard and relax. Pornography is not an enemy that accepts defeat easily and disappears on the horizon. It is persistent like a chronic disease, sneaky like an experienced predator, patient like someone who has all eternity to wait for their next opportunity. It will wait for exactly what is happening now. You feeling victorious, confident, maybe even a little invincible. It will wait for you to relax your vigilance, lower your guard, start believing that you are already cured, that you can already control consumption, that you deserve a reward for the effort made. It is in this moment of false security that it counterattacks with everything, because it knows that you are no longer waiting. Therefore, the word that you must carry from here is not over, which would be a dangerous lie. The word is continues. The battle continues, the vigilance continues, the construction of the new identity continues, the daily discipline continues. Because true freedom is not conquered in 3 days. It is built over months and years of repeated conscious choices. If you endured 3 days, you can endure 30. If you can endure 30, you can endure 90. If you can endure 90, you can endure a lifetime. This is not just a beautiful motivational phrase to make you feel good. It is a mathematical principle based on psychological evidence. Each victory exponentially increases your capacity for the next victory. The basis of total victory lies in the first steps you have just taken. What yesterday seemed impossible, spending 3 days without giving in, is now in the past. It is history. It is a done deal. What seemed unbearable, enduring the dopamine crash, resisting the most intense impulses, has already been overcome and surpassed. Now, each following day is not just another number in the count. It is more concrete evidence that you are building a completely new version of yourself. And you need to understand that this completely transcends the issue of pornography. This is about fundamental discipline, about discovering that you have within you a power that you didn't know existed. It's about purpose that goes far beyond simply not doing something. It's about identity, about becoming the kind of man who governs his choices instead of being governed by them. When you resist an impulse now, you are not just saying no to a video on the screen. You are saying yes to a lifetime where you are the commander, not the subordinate. You are affirming that your mind is not a prison where you are trapped by your own desires, but a fortress from which you govern your destiny. I want you to record an image in your memory and carry it always. A soldier who has crossed the longest night of the war, bleeding, exhausted, afraid, surrounded by enemies, but who at dawn is still standing on the battlefield. That's exactly how you should see yourself at this moment. You are not perfect. No one is. You are not immune to future temptations. It would be unrealistic to expect that. You are not invincible. Humility is fundamental to maintaining victory. But you are standing. You are alive. You are stronger than yesterday. And that is already infinitely more than most men can achieve. Now it's time to make a commitment that goes far beyond words. Not just to me, not just to this video you're watching, but to the highest version of yourself, to the man you have the potential to become. Write in the comments, war. Simple as that, a powerful word. That word is not just typed text, it's your personal battle cry, your war flag planted on the digital battlefield. Every time you write that, you're not just participating in an online comment. You are declaring to yourself, to your subconscious mind, and to the whole world, I am not a slave to my impulses. I am consciously at war against everything that tries to weaken me. And subscribe to this channel as if your future freedom depended on that decision, because it really does. Not for numbers, not for the vanity of the content creator, but because each subsequent video is literally a new weapon in your arsenal, a new tested strategy, a new perspective that can be the difference between lasting victory and devastating relapse. Today we talked about the crucial importance of the first 3 days. In the next episode, you will receive more psychological ammunition, more clarity about the next phases of the journey, more specific strategies for the challenges that are still to come, and you simply cannot fight this war unarmed, without guidance, without community. Remember these fundamental truths and carry them always. Discipline is not self-imposed punishment. It is freedom conquered through conscious choices. Emotional pain during recovery is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that your nervous system is adjusting and healing. The existential emptiness that you may be feeling is not defeat. It is ground being prepared so that a new and more authentic life can be born. Every minute that you resist a temptation, you are not just avoiding something negative, you are actively building something positive. Every day that you win, you are not just accumulating numbers, you are planting seeds of a stronger identity. And at the end of this journey, the harvest will be a life without chains, without dependencies, without the constant humiliation of being dominated by pixels on the screen. Today ends day 4. Another milestone won, more evidence that you are much stronger than you imagine. And you continue standing, firm, resistant. Take a deep breath. Feel the weight of the achievement. Firm your heart with renewed determination. And repeat to yourself as a war mantra, I am at war against everything that tries to enslave me, and I will not back down. Because the war is far from over. New challenges will come, new temptations will appear, new moments of weakness will test your resolution. But now you already know something that changes everything. Something you didn't know 4 days ago. You can win. You've already proven it. You have concrete, unquestionable evidence that victory is possible. And when victory is possible, it becomes inevitable for those who persist. The war continues, but you now already know that you can win.